The storm around Orline rose like a living wall, a cyclone of magnetized seawater that shimmered under the fractured light of the dying red giant. From the deck of her skiff, Commander Lysa Wren watched the churning abyss and felt the familiar, unwelcome tightening in her chest. Storms on this planet had a habit of remembering you. They carried echoes, literal ones. The planet's atmosphere was a choir of electromagnetic harmonics, responding to emotional spikes with eerie precision. It made lying to yourself intolerable. Which was unlucky, because Lysa had always survived by lying beautifully. She leaned over the rail, her gloves sparking with the charged mist, and checked her sonar again. The reading was the same, an anomalous mass about 2 meters long, pulsing with signatures no naval catalogue had ever recorded. She should have ignored it. Her contract on Tideris Station was mediation work, tense speeches, late-night handshakes, and veiled threats served with polished cutlery. Not field retrieval. Not personal risk. Not storms with opinions. But something about the signal had felt aware. And Lysa had never been good at walking away from awareness. The skiff lurched as a wave slapped its underside. She steadied herself, lowering the retrieval net. The ocean glowed where the mesh sank, phosphorescent trails curving around it like curious hands. Then, a jolt. The winch strained, gears whining, dragging something heavy upward through the lit water. The shape broke the surface with a surge of pale luminescence. Lysa stepped back, pulse hammering once, sharply. It wasn't a creature she recognized, though she'd seen enough classified biology to fill a small museum with nightmares. This one was different. Deliberate in form. A fusion of anatomy and art. She knelt, careful, and brushed aside strands of seaweed. A face emerged, feminine, sharply angled, eyes closed but moving beneath the lids as though dreaming in another cadence. Skin like polished opal. Faint gill slits along the neck. Hair a rippling halo of bioluminescent threads. A thalassari. Impossible. Their species had gone silent cycles ago, long before the Orion Pact collapsed. Most believed them extinct, others whispered that they'd simply withdrawn into the planet's deeper trenches, severing ties with surface dwellers for reasons no diplomat had deciphered. Now one lay at Lysa's feet, drenched, unconscious, breathing shallowly. Great, Lysa muttered. Exactly what I needed. A politically extinct myth. The thalassari's eyelids fluttered. Lysa snapped upright, hand hovering near the pulse pistol on her hip. But the woman didn't rise. She only exhaled a shimmering plume that dissolved into the charged air and spoke in a voice resonant enough to vibrate through the deck. You heard me, she whispered. Lysa frowned. Wasn't aware I was listening. You were. The woman opened her eyes at last, irises shifting in shades of deep-sea teal. You came because you felt the calling. The bearer's pulse recognizes what logic cannot. Ah. Fantastic. Prophecy. Lysa almost preferred the storms. She powered down her pistol but kept her stance braced. Let's start simpler. Name? Soraya, the woman breathed. She tried to rise, faltered, and Lysa instinctively stepped forward to catch her. The contact triggered a flicker of energy along Soraya's skin, a ripple of light that danced across Lysa's gloves before fading. You are injured, Lysa said, more curtly than intended. Who attacked you? Not who. Soraya's expression tightened with something Lysa recognized too well, grief sharpened by duty. What? A Dominion extraction swarm. Lysa's stomach sank. Vea Kaltoris's signature. Of course. You were running from the Heliox Dominion. Soraya nodded, though she was already losing strength. They seek our genetic chambers. They believe we shape tides as weapons. You don't. We shape them as memory. Soraya touched the deck as though feeling for something Lysa couldn't perceive. But they do not distinguish between creation and threat. Lysa exhaled slowly. The Dominion wasn't known for nuance. They were known for winning. Why me? She asked finally. There are entire research fleets that could have helped you. Soraya lifted her gaze, and Lysa felt the storm around them quiet, not physically, but perceptually, as though some deeper frequency had shifted. The planet listened, and the planet approved. Because your resonance matches the thalassari imprint. Because you are the first surface dweller in 7 cycles capable of stabilizing our seed line. Soraya cupped Lysa's wrist with a trembling hand. You are the bearer not of our offspring, but of our continuity. A living bridge. Lysa pulled her hand back gently. That sounds like a diplomatic nightmare. It is a biological covenant, Soraya replied. And the only way my people survive the Dominion's hunt. No, Lysa corrected quietly. It's a political time bomb, and you just placed it in my lap. Lightning skated across the horizon, illuminating the skiff in electric blue. Lysa turned, scanning the skies. The Dominion often deployed trackers into the storm belts, using the planet's electromagnetic chaos to mask their approach. Can you move? She asked. Enough. Soraya tried to stand again. This time, Lysa supported her without hesitation. The woman was lighter than she looked, built for the densest pressures of Orline's depths. Out of water, she was as fragile as any diplomat caught outside their specialty. Lysa ushered her toward the cabin hatch. We need to get to Futuristic station. They can hide you, temporarily. Soraya paused, her bioluminescent gaze lifting to the storm-racked sky. You think this is a matter of concealment? It usually is, Lysa replied. And I'm painfully good at it. No. Soraya laid a hand on Lysa's sternum, directly above her heartbeat. The contact was strangely cool, almost meditative. This is about revelation. Your own. As much as mine. Lysa froze, something inside her tightening like a cord pulled too fast. For a moment, the storm seemed to dim entirely, and all she could hear was the rhythmic movement of Soraya's breath, faint, steady, deliberate. Save the metaphysics, Lysa said at last, stepping back. We're in enough trouble without adding spirituality. Soraya smiled faintly. You speak as though truth and danger are separate. I speak, Lysa said, guiding her through the hatch, as someone who survived both. The cabin lights flickered as the door sealed behind them. Lysa keyed in the ascent coordinates, glancing at the radar. A fresh cluster of signatures was materializing along the storm's edge. Dominion drones. Of course. Soraya sank onto the bench, exhaustion pulling at her ethereal features. They followed me, she whispered. They never yield. Neither do I, Lysa said, activating the skiff's boosters. The engines whined, then roared, pushing against the tide. But you should know something before we reach orbit. Soraya's eyes half closed. Tell me. I don't believe in destiny. Or chosen ones. Or prophecies written in anyone's biology. Then believe in consequence, Soraya murmured. Lysa didn't answer. She couldn't. Not with the Dominion signatures closing in, not with the weight of a dying species sitting across from her, not with the storm of her past rising inside her just as fast as the waves outside. Instead, she pushed the throttle forward and let the skiff climb toward the fractured heavens, toward Futuristic station, toward danger, toward whatever impossible truth she'd dragged out of the sea. The storm rose behind them like a verdict. And Lysa Wren, who had never been chosen for anything but guilt, did not look back. Futuristic station hung above Orline like a relic built by someone who believed diplomacy could be engineered from steel and patience alone. Its segmented arms circled the central hub with ceremonial symmetry, but Lysa had always found the place unsettling. Too quiet between crises. Too polished for the truths traded inside. As her skiff locked into the lower port, she felt the familiar compression behind her ribs, the one she associated with walking into meetings she couldn't exit cleanly. Soraya stood at her side, steadier now but still faintly luminous, as though the station's filtered air couldn't quite dim what she carried from the deep. Lysa watched her reflection flicker across the docking glass, alien, fragile, and undeniably aware of the attention she would draw. Bringing her here was a tactical mistake, but leaving her planetside was worse. Dominion trackers would crush the ocean until they found her. The hatch cycled open. A reception officer waited, partly curious, partly alarmed. His gaze lingered on Soraya, but he said nothing until Lysa stepped past him with the clipped stride of someone who expected instant deference. Commander Wren, he greeted cautiously. Station control flagged your arrival as unscheduled. Emergencies rarely RSVP, she replied. Prep a secure corridor. No announcements, no data pings outside the Accord channels. The officer hesitated. Should I alert the consular ring? Not yet. Lysa didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. You alert only me until I say otherwise. He nodded, recalibrated by her tone, and motioned them forward. As they walked, Soraya examined the architecture with quiet intensity, fingertips grazing the handrails as though reading faint scripts carved beneath the metal. This place hums, she murmured. A different rhythm than the planet. More angular. Heavy with intention. Lysa kept her stride even. Stations like this are built on centuries of fear. It's not surprising you can feel the weight. You do not approve of it. I don't disapprove, Lysa said. I just understand what it costs to uphold a place like this. They reached the inner lift. Lysa keyed in a restricted level, a set of diplomatic suites used when negotiations needed insulation from curious ears. As the doors closed, she finally looked at Soraya fully, not as a mission, not as a threat, but as someone whose existence had already altered the balance she fought to maintain. You realize your presence puts the whole station at risk. I realize my existence already endangered everything beneath the waves, Soraya replied softly. You chose risk the moment you pulled me from the storm. That wasn't a choice, Lysa said. It was reflex. Reflexes reveal truth more honestly than decisions. Lysa exhaled in irritation, though not entirely at Soraya. Let's save the philosophy for after we survive the next hour. When the lift opened, the corridor was silent, lit by thin blue strips along the floor. Lysa ushered Soraya toward a room marked with a simple numeric code, nothing that suggested importance. Inside, the chamber was spare but intentionally comfortable, neutral tones, adaptive lighting, and an ambient frequency meant to soothe species with different sensory tolerances. Soraya stepped in slowly, as though assessing an unfamiliar ritual space. You intend to hide me. I intend to evaluate the damage we're dealing with before anyone else does. Lysa sealed the door. The Dominion doesn't make random moves. If they're hunting your people, it's because they think you're leverage. Soraya lowered herself onto a bench that curved like a tide-worn stone. We are not leverage. We are memory. Our chambers hold the echoes of ancient oceans, the songs that shaped our genesis. The Dominion wants that resonance for conquest. And you believe I can protect it. I believe you must. Soraya's gaze met hers with unnerving clarity. Your resonance binds to ours. It is rare, unlikely, but real. Lysa paced once across the room to ground herself. She hated being cornered by realities she hadn't chosen. The Thalassari imprint sounded mystical, but Dominion forces didn't chase myths without evidence. Which meant Soraya carried something measurable and dangerous that linked to Lysa whether she liked it or not. Explain this resonance, Lysa said. Without riddles. It is a harmonic compatibility between neural signatures, Soraya answered. Your mind holds a frequency pattern that aligns with our seedline matrix. For us, it is a stabilizing force. Without such alignment, our chambers collapse. With it, they endure. Lysa stared. And if I walk away? Then the Dominion takes us, Soraya said simply, and reshapes our biology into a weapon neither side of the Accord can control. Silence settled between them with surgical precision. Lysa felt a pressure at the back of her throat, the old instinct to calculate every possible angle. She imagined Vea Kaltaurus learning that the Thalassari had been found. She imagined the treaties splintering, factions mobilizing, the station turning from neutral ground into a siege map. Soraya watched her with calm patience, as though expecting the shape of Lysa's thoughts. You fear entanglement. I fear chains disguised as obligations, Lysa corrected. I've worn them before. A pulse of muted light traveled along Soraya's skin, not emotion but biology reacting to tension. You assume this bond diminishes your autonomy. It does not. It amplifies your capacity to decide. That's a flattering interpretation, Lysa said. Not a convincing one. Before Soraya could answer, a console near the door chimed a soft, coded alert. Lysa crossed the room swiftly and read the incoming message. Dominion vessels had been detected at the perimeter of the neutral zone. Not enough to spark panic, but enough to question intent. They followed you farther than I thought, she muttered. Soraya closed her eyes briefly. They will not stop. Lysa lifted her chin. No, they won't. Which means we need to establish what exactly I'm protecting before I stand between you and Kaltaurus. The chamber lies deep beneath the planet's crust, Soraya said. I am its last navigator. Without me, its pathways seal. Without you, its core cannot stabilize. You are not guardian or progenitor. You are catalyst. Lysa felt the word settle like a weight she hadn't asked to carry. Catalyst implied change irreversible, personal, and politically catastrophic. She stepped back toward Soraya slowly. If what you're saying is true, then we're already in a conflict the Accord isn't prepared for. Yes, Soraya agreed. But conflicts begin long before they are named. Lysa studied her, feeling an unfamiliar fissure in her composure, not vulnerability but recognition. Soraya wasn't manipulating her. She was offering clarity wrapped in danger. All right, Lysa said finally. You stay here. No transmissions. No contact with anyone except me. I'll quietly reach out to a few allies who owe me more than they like to admit. And then? Soraya asked. Then we figure out whether this resonance of yours is the key to preventing another interstellar collapse, Lysa said, or the spark that starts it. Soraya inclined her head, a gesture not of gratitude, but of shared burden. Lysa turned toward the door. Her reflection in the polished metal looked older than she remembered, as though she'd stepped into a future she'd never agreed to. She didn't speak her next thought aloud, but she felt it deeply. The storm hadn't ended. It had changed form. Tiderist Station seldom slept, but it pretended convincingly. At certain hours its corridors dimmed, its traffic slowed, and its inhabitants retreated into private enclaves where negotiations waited behind sealed doors. Lysa moved through the quieter wing of the consular ring with calculated ease, aware that stillness on this station always carried an undertone of surveillance. She kept her pace measured, neither hurried nor aimless. Too fast suggested panic, too slow invited scrutiny. A mediator's walk, she reminded herself. A neutral stride masking the fact that her mind was already shaping an invisible defensive perimeter around a truth no one else knew. The Thalassari were not gone, and she had one hidden 3 levels below her current path. The Dominion's presence at the border made that truth a hazard. Vea Kaltaurus did nothing without layering implications 3 steps deep. His vessels had arrived quietly, but their silence was its own message. We know something has shifted. Lysa slipped into a narrow chamber used for encrypted communiques, a space designed to feel austere, as though diplomacy required discomfort to remain honest. She keyed in an authentication string that only 4 people in the solar belt possessed. Only one of them she trusted. A translucent panel unfolded, revealing the face of Admiral Parath Varos. He looked older than when she last saw him, though the man had been born weary. His eyes narrowed when he recognized her. Ren, he said. You only contact me when the galaxy's about to fracture. It's considerate of me to maintain a pattern, Lysa replied. We have movement on the Dominion front. I noticed, Varos said. 3 cruisers. No escorts. A diplomatic posture, technically speaking. Nothing about Vea is diplomatic unless he can weaponize the outcome, Lysa said. He's searching for something. Your tone suggests you know what. Lysa hesitated. She had called Varos because he understood scale, consequence, and the gravity of withheld truths. But even with him, she couldn't reveal everything. Not yet. I intercepted a situation planet-side, she said. A survivor. Not human. Not Accord-affiliated. His expression sharpened. Which species? One we believed lost. Varos exhaled sharply, not surprise, but calculation. The Thalassari. It wasn't a question. Lysa's jaw tightened. How long have you suspected they were still out there? Long enough, Varos said. But the evidence was never actionable. And the Accord forbade deeper incursion into Orline's trenches. Which the Dominion ignored. Of course they did. Vea treats treaties like polite fictions. Lysa stepped closer to the panel. If the Dominion locates the survivor before we understand what she represents, the station becomes a pressure point. We could see a jurisdictional standoff within hours. And you pulled her out? Varos asked quietly. Personally, circumstances didn't allow delegation. Varos studied her. Does she pose a threat? Not in the way you fear, Lysa said. But she carries knowledge that could shift biological leverage across the Accord. That, Varos murmured, is a threat. Lysa bristled. Not to us. To stability, he corrected. And stability is the currency every government spends before admitting it's bankrupt. A moment stretched. Lysa felt the old tension between them, not animosity, but the familiar friction between someone who dealt in truth and someone forced to deal in consequences. I need time, she said. And containment. Quietly. I can interfere with the Dominion's sensor sweeps, Varos said. Enough to blur your tracks. But I can't stall them indefinitely. If Vaya suspects what you're hiding, he'll escalate under the guise of preventive retrieval. I know. Then prepare for confrontation, Varos said. Because he won't wait for your diplomacy to catch up. Lysa ended the transmission without another word. The console folded back into the wall, erasing the conversation as though it had never happened. She stood in the dim chamber for a moment longer, letting her thoughts settle. Varos's warning wasn't melodrama. Vaya Kaltoris believed in inevitabilities, specifically his own. The Dominion would turn the station inside out if it meant securing a biological advantage. Lysa left the chamber, her stride sharper now. She rerouted her path toward an observation deck that overlooked Orline. The ocean shone with pale light beneath the station's orbit, a calm surface disguising the labyrinth below. She had no desire to linger, but the deck was empty, and solitude was a tactical asset. Leaning against the rail, she allowed her breathing to slow. When she closed her eyes, she saw Soraya again, not the alien survivor she'd pulled from the storm, but the focused clarity in her voice when speaking of the chamber beneath the crust. You are catalyst. Lysa despised the word. She didn't want to ignite anything. She wanted to prevent ignition. A soft footfall echoed behind her. Your thoughts are loud, Soraya said. Lysa turned, startled despite herself. You're supposed to stay in the suite. I could not. Soraya approached the window as though drawn by the gravity of the view. The ambient lights reflected off her iridescent skin. The station presses on me. I needed to understand it. You needed air. I needed intention, Soraya corrected. Lysa watched her, delicate, luminous, but composed with the certainty of someone born into deep currents where pressure shaped the bones. If anyone sees you, they will see a survivor, Soraya said. The truth of what I am remains hidden. For now, Lysa said. But not long. Soraya studied the planet below. Your station is a shell. Strong, but brittle. It feels overextended. It always has been, Lysa said. This place was built to mediate conflicts no one wanted to resolve. Yet you serve it. I serve what it protects. Soraya turned her head, eyes meeting Lysa's with cool precision. You protect others. Who protects you? Lysa bristled. I don't require. That answer, Soraya interrupted softly, is not the one you believe. Lysa looked away. This isn't the time for introspection. When is it? When we aren't facing political collapse, Lysa said. Which is approaching faster than I can counter. Soraya stepped closer to the window. The Dominion hunts because they fear loss. Their leader fears endings he cannot dictate. He will come for me. And for you. You're not making this easier. I am making it honest. Lysa's jaw tightened. Then hear honesty in return. If Vaya learns you're here, you'll be used as justification for a full Dominion incursion. This station cannot survive that. Soraya's expression didn't waver. Then we must move before he does. Lysa blinked. Move. You require knowledge, Soraya said. The chamber holds it. You expect me to accompany you into a planetary trench while Dominion vessels circle overhead? I expect you to choose between reaction and initiative, Soraya said. One preserves the Accord. The other lets it crumble. Lysa wasn't accustomed to being challenged so bluntly by someone she had rescued. Yet Soraya's calm insistence carried no arrogance. Only certainty. You're asking me to leave the station, Lysa said. Before I establish a defensive posture. I am telling you, Soraya corrected gently, that defense without understanding is merely delay. The observation deck lights flickered a minor glitch, but enough to signal that the station's systems were strained by the Dominion's proximity. Lysa understood the implication. The window for preparation was narrowing. Give me 1 hour, she said. Then we move. Soraya inclined her head. I will be ready. Lysa watched her leave, then turned back to the planet's shimmering surface. The Dominion wasn't waiting for her. Neither was destiny, but she refused the word. This wasn't fate. It was alignment. And alignment could be broken or reshaped. The hour ahead would decide which. The hour passed with mechanical precision. Lysa used it to strip away every assumption she once relied on. The station's diplomatic veneer no longer offered protection. Its neutrality was an architecture of fading promises. Dominion cruisers had tightened their formation along the neutral boundary, their vector unmistakable. They were preparing to claim jurisdiction the moment the accord faltered. Lysa secured passage to the auxiliary hangar, choosing a route few officers bothered to patrol. Her file still carried enough authority to override most locks, though she sensed the system pausing a fraction longer before accepting her credentials, as if the station itself had begun to question her intentions. Soraya waited near the hangar's inner gate. She stood still, but not rigid. Her composure resembled the calm before deep-sea pressure shifts. The faint luminance of her skin cast a cool reflection on the floor, an unspoken reminder that she didn't belong here, among steel corridors and political machinery. You're certain? Lysa asked quietly. Soraya regarded her with steady clarity. Certainty is not a luxury I possess. But necessity is. Lysa keyed in the final override. That's the closest thing to a reassuring answer I've heard all day. The gate opened, revealing a compact vessel built for atmospheric transitions, reinforced hull, narrow profile, minimal crew requirements. Lysa boarded first, checking every system with efficient, practiced movements. Soraya entered behind her, silent but attentive, as though absorbing the vessel's unfamiliar physics. As the engines warmed, the console displayed a shift in perimeter markers. Dominion drones had dispersed through the storm belt, weaving a detection net with surgical precision. They're adapting faster than expected, Lysa muttered. They've traced my resonance, Soraya replied. They do not understand it, but they feel its outline. Then we move before they refine the signal. The vessel disengaged from the hangar clamps and slipped into open orbit. The station receded behind them, a fragile sphere suspended above a restless ocean. Lysa set a descent trajectory toward a polarized seam in the planet's electromagnetic field, a corridor where interference would distort Dominion scans. A tremor of turbulence hit them as they pierced the upper atmosphere. All-ines storms churned below, layered in coils of charged vapor. Lysa eased the vessel through the pressure bands, eyes scanning the sensor strips for anomalies. You can feel it, can't you? Soraya said softly. The shift beneath the clouds. Lysa kept her gaze forward. I feel complications. Nothing mystical. It isn't mysticism, Soraya replied. It's structure. The chamber reshapes the planet's frequencies. You resonate with those changes. That word keeps following me, Lysa said. I'm not convinced it means what you think. It means alignment, Soraya said. Not obedience. Not fate. A convergence of patterns neither of us engineered. Lysa forced her focus back to the controls. She wouldn't allow a concept she barely understood to unsettle her. The Dominion already exploited uncertainty, she refused to give it more ground. The clouds parted abruptly, revealing a vortex of pale light spiraling beneath the waves, a phenomenon she had never seen during her naval tenure. That's your landmark? Lysa asked. It marks the entrance, Soraya said. The chamber lies far below, where the planet's crust folds into a lattice of memory. Lysa engaged submersion protocols. The hull thickened with a resonance-dampening field as the vessel plunged into the water. The ocean embraced them instantly, pressure mounting around the frame. Luminescent organisms clustered near the viewport, drawn to the vessel's foreign warmth. Depth markers ticked downward. The water darkened until light became a distant concept, replaced by an intricate glow radiating from structures embedded in the rock. A geometric pattern spiraled toward a central point where the sea thinned into a translucent membrane. "That isn't natural," Lysa said quietly. "It is cultivated," Soraya explained. "Our ancestors wove crystalline conduits to guide the planet's harmonics. Each pattern preserves a history of transformation. And the chamber? Beyond that threshold." Lysa slowed their approach. The membrane rippled as though aware of them. Her hands tightened on the controls. "It recognizes you," Soraya said. Lysa didn't respond. She guided the vessel through the barrier. The membrane parted without resistance, and the surrounding pressure dissipated in an instant. They entered an immense cavern suspended within the planet, a hollow sphere of shimmering stone, its interior lined with crystalline strands that pulsed like living circuitry. A central basin glowed with contained energy, fluid yet structured, neither water nor light but an intersection of both. Lysa stared. "This is what the Dominion wants." "No," Soraya said. "They want what they believe it can become under their command. They do not understand its purpose. Which is to hold the continuity of our people. Not as bloodlines, but as harmonics, encoded symmetries passed through chosen catalysts." "I'm not a vessel," Lysa said, voice tightening. "I won't be used." "You misunderstand," Soraya replied gently. "You are not being filled. You are being mirrored. The chamber needs balance. Without it, the resonant matrix fractures. You stabilize the structure, nothing more." "That's still influence," Lysa said. "It is partnership," Soraya corrected. Before Lysa could retort, the cavern trembled. A pulse of external energy struck the membrane they had passed through. Dominion signatures registered on the vessel's sensors. "Too fast," Lysa hissed. "Varos bought us minutes, not hours." Soraya placed her hand on the basin's edge. "We must initialize the sequence before they breach the threshold." Lysa stepped beside her. "Tell me what to do." Soraya guided her toward a crystalline pillar emerging from the basin. "Place your hand here. Let the matrix read you." Lysa hesitated, not out of fear, but out of resentment toward inevitability. Then she touched the pillar. A vibration surged through her bones, neither painful nor soothing, but profoundly intrusive. Memories flickered in fractured impressions, the war she helped fuel, the treaties she salvaged, the guilt she carried like a private exile. The chamber analyzed every cadence of her history, not judging but categorizing. Soraya extended her own hand to the opposite side of the pillar. The resonance shifted instantly, a convergence of frequencies forming a stable oscillation that illuminated the entire cavern. The basin rose in spirals of luminous fluid. The crystalline conduits brightened. The planet's harmonics intensified into a unified chord that seemed to bind stone, water, and energy into a single coherent identity. "It accepts you," Soraya said. "The matrix anchors through your presence." "And what does that accomplish?" Lysa asked. "It ensures continuity beyond destruction," Soraya answered. "If the Dominion breaches the chamber, they cannot rewrite what you stabilize. The imprint now holds boundaries they cannot manipulate." Lysa felt the vibration deepen. "So this is protection. And warning," Soraya said. "The planet will defend itself if forced." Before Lysa could ask how, the cavern shuddered violently. Dominion disruptors had struck the membrane again, harder. Cracks formed along the barrier. "They're close," Lysa said. "We need extraction." "The chamber will seal once we depart," Soraya said. "But only if you maintain the resonance while we withdraw." Lysa's pulse quickened. "I can try." "No," Soraya said, meeting her gaze. "You can succeed." They returned to the vessel, the cavern's glow intensifying behind them. As the membrane sealed, the ocean around them stabilized, but the Dominion drones were already descending. Lysa pushed the engines to their limit. The vessel tore upward through the trench, vibrations shaking the frame. Dominion scanners flared across the sensors. A drone closed in on their flank. Soraya looked at her calmly. Trust the consequence of what you began. The vessel broke through the last layer of water just as the ocean erupted with a surge of harmonic force. The wave struck the Dominion drones, scattering them like debris caught in a gravitational storm. Lysa steadied the vessel, breath sharp, or mixing with grim clarity. The chamber had defended itself through her resonance. Soraya watched the rising sunlight with quiet resolution. The Accord must learn what happened. And so must the Dominion. Lysa tightened her grip on the controls. Then the next move is ours. The planet shimmered below them, no longer silent, no longer hidden. And the balance of power had shifted. Irrevocably.